Let's come back to matters here, and a hugely important story to so many of you, which is if you've been affected by the cladding scandal. Now, I remind you, it was around 7.5 years ago that 72 lives were lost in the Grenfell Tower fire, thousands of residents still living in what are called unsafe cladding buildings. Currently, 95% of buildings with the same type of cladding used on Grenfell have been remediated. But overall, because obviously there are different forms of cladding, well, perhaps not obviously, but it's not surprising that there are different forms of cladding, 30% of identified buildings have now been remediated in England, it says here. Now, in the first hour of the morning show, we heard from a government minister. They want everything fixed by the end of 2029. Well, I asked the relevant minister, Alex Norris, for more details.
We have got some of the biggest mortgage lenders in the country to commit that if the right certification is in place, they will lend on those properties. The insurance market has come together to try and collectively tackle some of those premiums. We're going to go harder on brokers' fees to make sure there's not gouging there, particularly around some of the costs around waking watch. We know that isn't a very good system, and that needs to be replaced by proper alarms. We're making funding available for that as well. So we are wanting to address all those smaller ways in which it affects people's lives, but for them as individuals, really big ways. And we'll work with campaigners and we'll work with individuals affected to try and tackle them.
So put yourself in the shoes of someone then. For the last 7 and a bit years, you've gone to bed every night thinking there could be a Grenfell Tower. You're living in a Grenfell Tower. You might have a waking watch scheme, which you just hope to God the man or woman is awake and would sound the necessary alarm. In many instances, you've been unable to sell the damn place because it's got cladding on. It's unmortgageable. So even if someone wants to buy it, it's damn hard to get the mortgage. But don't worry, help is on the way. Help is on the way from Mrs. Doubtfire. Help is on the way, but it'll be another 5 years. Now, I want to stress, all of the last 7.5 years, bar the last 5 months, have been under a conservative leadership. We need to stress that. But it's not quick enough, is it? Giles Grover campaigns with End Our Cladding Scandal. And I note, Mr. Grover, you're quoted in the coverage in today's Guardian newspaper, and you're less than impressed. Tell the listeners what you make of this. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yes, it's not really the meaningful change that we hoped we'd see from this government. Recognise they've only been in for 5 months, but we thought they'd hit the ground running. A lot of what they're suggesting, we don't think will make any difference to people who are still trapped, still don't know when their home's going to be made safe. As you say, still can't sell really, still paying huge insurance costs. They need to do a lot more.
Well, he told me, and of course you'll have members who can tell me directly, but the minister told me that they've managed to get together some major funding institutions and organisations in this country, and if a certificate can be provided, then they are mortgageable. He's told me that he's been able to rally the insurance companies as well, and they are looking more favourably on people in these homes. What's the reality as you see it, Mr. Grover?
The reality is that in July 2022, the lenders said, OK, we'll start to commit to lending. They said they'll do that from January 2023, based upon simply having confirmation you're in a government funding scheme, but they're just not doing that. They're considering lending, which is wholly different from actually lending, where you can get a mortgage. The value is just downgraded massively. So it's all these warm words. OK, we'll make these promises. Something might happen a few years down the line. People still don't know when their home's going to be made safe. That's a key message this government needs to understand.
What's the emotional toll been on some of the people you work with your organisation, End Our Cladding Scandal?
Yeah, it's, people talk about the financial impact. It is the mental health impact. It's a simple point of not knowing your home is safe, your sanctuary, the very simple thing that you thought you could go to your home, sleep, rest easily. Even during the pandemic, I think I was speaking to you during that time. Mm-hmm. You were safer outside than you are inside. It's your life choices that just end up being ruined. You can't move on. Families can't escape. There's a lot of people who are pensioners who are called non-qualifying leaseholders. I know quite a few pensioners have had to go back to work. So whether you're a resident, a leaseholder, whatever it is, you're just trapped really still in many different forms.
You reference families. Of course, as you put a family together, you would seek possibly to move to a bigger flat or possibly even a house. And I would imagine there's a lot of families living in very crowded conditions, possibly in one beds as well. Well, one-bedroom flats, I mean.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those. There's also people who are doing second steppers. They want to sell their flat, but they can only rent out. I mean, you can rent out flats still quite easily, but you can't sell them. So we're actually not freeing up homes that could go to first-time buyers. So I think really impacting Labour's target to build 1.5 million homes. And the fact is those homes, whether it's shared owners, second steppers, older people, non-qualifying leaseholders, can't sell them. So, yeah, it's all still a mess, to put it mildly.
Lastly, what had you hoped? What would you like to see?
We'd like to see the government get a grip of this crisis and take control, because Keir Starmer's admitted that it's the fault of successive governments over decades, focusing on the interests of industry. I'm afraid it's still the senior civil servants, whether it's MHCLG, the Home Office, or particularly Treasury officials, who are just blocking everything. They're just more interested in industry and business rather than people who just want to be able to know when their homes can be made safe. They've got to do a shed load more.
Mr. Graver, thank you for your time. I can see the disappointment because you're on a video link, and everyone can hear the disappointment in your voice. Giles Graver is campaigner with End Our Cladding Scandal. If you are caught in that, if you are trying to move on, you and your husband, you and your wife, you and your partner, whatever it might be, you got one kiddie and you're in a one-bedroom, or possibly for goodness sake, it's 7 years. You could have had 4 children in that time, all be stuck in a one-bedroom flat. How's that working? Or sadly, possibly your marriage or your relationship has broken up, and you need to try and sell the property to realise so you can get your divorce, or just get the split sorted and you can't because that's stuck. If you're caught in those, do give me a call.